Hello friends, happy Sunday morning. I'm just doing a little tutorial for you today. So I feel like my lighting is weird. Let's just go like that. Okay, so I've already got started and we're doing a low textured updo, and I just wanted to talk about how to achieve this look on someone who has really fine hair. So you can make someone who has fine hair look like they have a lot more if you can use the right technique. So what I've been doing is I'm curling her whole head section by section. And so what I did to get started was I sprayed it all with flexible hold hairspray. My favorite flexible hairspray is by Bedhead, and it's called Masterpiece. It smells really great, it has a great shine on it. So I sprayed that all in first. And then when I was done with that, I went through and I brushed it. And that just helps to disperse my product all the way through. And then now I've been starting at the bottom. I sectioned out the front to do last, and I've been starting at the bottom and I'm working my way up to the top. And I am doing some volumized curls internally so I can make a really beautiful textured updo that once you do all this prep work, you don't need to spend much time doing the actual updo itself. So it's really lovely for that. So I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the important things to think about when you're working with hair that's really fine, and you want to create something that's really beautiful for your client, but it's hard because they don't have much hair to work with. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating volumized curls, and the way that I'm making them have more volume is by holding the hair up before I curl it. So I'm holding it up so it's coming up and off the head. And I've been doing that the entire time I've been curling her hair. And so what this does is it creates a lot of depth on the inside of the hair so that when you actually go to pin it into your updo, you have a lot of grip to work with. If you don't do the work of the inside of this updo, it's not going to last very long, first of all, especially on fine hair that's really limp. It's not going to look very full. You might see spots of her scalp showing through, and you just won't have the same kind of flexibility to create a really big, beautiful textured updo. So that's why I'm spending the time to create these volumized curls internally, so they're popping off her head and they're nice and big before I do any work to pin. So it's something that seems like it is a lot of work, but it really pays off, and you can actually throw an updo up rather quickly once you've done all this great prep work. So the flexible hairspray really helps my curls stay put, which is great. And then I'm gonna finish with texture spray after I went through and I've curled. Now the other thing that I'm doing is I am going back and forth in different directions. So I'm curling some this way, some that way, some up and over my curling iron, and that will just create a lot of variety in my curl texture and create more of an interesting look in my updo when I go to pin it. If I make all the curls go in the exact same direction and they go around the head, and I'm holding my curling iron in the same place, then I'm not going to get the same amount of volume or interest in my updo. So that's something to think about just when you're doing any updo and when you're getting started, is think about the direction of your curls and think about how you are going to be placing your updo when you go to pin. So you want to think about how you're curling, how that's going to affect the way that you pin. So once I have these curls in, I'm going to go through with my texture spray and I'm just really getting it in there. If the hair is really fine, then you want to use texture powder even at the roots, and that will really help to get a lot of great lift. Sorry, this light is really bright. Okay, so I'm gonna take down my next section. So I've been taking thin horizontal sections as I work, and the thinner section that you take, the more texture you're gonna get. So if you have someone, a bride who has just really impossibly thin hair, take really small sections and take an even smaller curling iron, and that will be able to create a lot more grip and interest in your updo as you work. Because otherwise, you just don't have much hair to play with. So you kind of have to create hair here. And you can create the illusion of having more hair by taking smaller sections and using the right amount of product and just taking the time to work on the hair internally like I'm doing. So you'll find too that when you're doing any updo, really any updo that the hair is all pinned up, if you don't touch the hair on the inside, when you go to pin it, it doesn't want to do exactly what you want to do, what you want it to do. It doesn't tend to stay as long, and you don't have any place to stick your pins in. So when you do the inside work of the hair, whether that be through product, through curling, or using even like a texture iron, like a small mini crimper, those are all things that you do on the inside so that when you go to start pinning and forming your updo, you have something for the other hair to grab onto and to make sure that it stays and holds and builds great structure in your updo. So one of the secrets to make updos last a long time is having good structure. And the way that you have good structure in an updo is by creating really solid foundations. So you can create solid foundations by doing, you can create a ponytail or create a bun or a braid to start out your updo, and that's a great way to have a foundation. But another often overlooked part of the foundation is what you do to the hair to prep it. And that means what you do with product and also what you do with your hot tools, whether that be a curling iron, a Marcel iron, a crimper, and then texture spray, texture powder, wax spray, flexible hairspray, all the stuff you do to prep the hair. That is going to give your updo tons of structure. So now that I've curled this part, I'm going to come back through again, and I'm being really heavy-handed with my texture spray because I really want to have lots of good grip in her hair, and I want to create a really beautiful updo that has a lot of texture in it. And so that's why I'm spending all this time doing this work. Now I'm brushing the hair on the very top up. And the reason I'm doing that is because this is going to be the final part that you see come and lay over the top. If I just start curling it and pulling it flat, it's going to lay flat. So I want to curl it up high and then bring it down so I have a lot of volume. So if you comb each section first, you can get really nice clean curls. And if you really have hair that's resistant to holding curl, then what I would do is hairspray this section, then comb through, then curl it. And by doing that and being really meticulous on each section, then you'll get a nice, long-lasting curl that's going to just hold for you and stay all night long. I think when I first started out doing updos, like 14 years ago, I would have someone sit in my chair or wherever I was, and I would just start. I would start curling the ends. I would start braiding, pinning, whatever it was that I was going to do. And then, I would kind of like spray some hairspray as I went or just finish with hairspray. And actually, like 13, 14 years ago, they didn't even have texture spray. I mean, even like, it's only within the last 5 years that they've had like dry shampoo and texture spray and all this great product to give the hair a lot of grip. Before that, there wasn't as much, just hairspray, so you just got a lot of crunch in the hair. But the hairstyles were a lot sleeker back then too, so you didn't need as much texture spray. But my point is that sometimes I felt like the hair was slipping or I couldn't get my bobby pins to grip in the way that I wanted to, and that is because I didn't do any prep work on the inside of the hair. Or I would get stuck with somebody, I would get myself stuck because I'd have someone who had really fine hair and I'd start pinning, and then what you start to see is I'd start to see the scalp and I'd start to see the bobby pins, and it would just start to look messy and frizzy and the bobby pins would start to slip out, and that's because I didn't do all this great prep work on the inside. So that's what I'm teaching you today, if you're just joining me. All right, so you can see I've got lots of bouncy curls right over the top, and I'm gonna do one more spritz of my texture spray. And then I'm gonna use my fingers just to pull this back and start to comb through it. So I'm just breaking it up with my fingers, And one tip that I advise doing is if you've got someone who's got hair that's prone to being more on the frizzy side, just gonna, pardon me, let me just turn this off because I feel like it's too bright. Oh, there we go. Okay guys, so what you want to do then is take some curl cream. So the curl cream that I am loving is Schwarzkopf, and it's called Tame Wild Smoothing Anti-Frizz Cream, and it's awesome. It really works really well. So you can put it in your fingers, and it just helps to smooth through these curls. So when you're pulling them back and you're creating your updo, it's smooth and it's not frizzy. So I'm going to use that, pull through the curls, and I'm not doing the front yet. I'm just going to keep that away for now, and I'm just going to focus on the back. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to start by gathering the crown area, and I'm going to pin it really loosely. So you can see I have this nice grip and texture here, and I'm just going to gather this in, and I'm going to create more of a foundational pin. So rather than taking this hair and just, twisting and putting one pin in, I'm going to flat pin. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I really need to have a spot that I bring the other hair to, and so I need to create myself a foundation. So I'm going to do that here with the flat pinning technique. So I'm opening my pin up just slightly, and I'm going to flat pin across the back. And so this is going to be my foundation. So I'm going to do a couple more pins in this place here, and that will help to create a foundation for me of where I can pull up the rest of the hair. So I'm just gathering in a little more hair each time, and I'm crossing the pins over each other, and that is going to help to create a really awesome foundation for me. And then I have a guide for myself of where I'm going to bring in the rest of the hair. So I'm going to take the hair all the way from the top of the ear and bring this over and pin it into my foundational area here. And this, like I said, is just creating a guide for where I'm going to bring the rest of the hair. Now, this hair is even thicker because it's a mannequin of what I'm talking about, what I want to kind of teach you today. But if you have someone with super fine hair, you're only going to need a couple bobby pins here because there's not going to be much to it. So once you have that pinned in, then you can go through and just loosely pull to create any kind of volume and texture you want here. So you want to hold on to the bobby pins, and then you just pull it up slightly. And the reason that this works is because you spent all this time curling and prepping the hair underneath. So all this hair under here is curled, it's textured, it's got a lot of volume in there, and that's why it's going to pull out really nicely and create this great texture. If you do not do that, this will fall flat, and when you go to pull, you're just going to see holes in it. You might see back combing if you did that. You might even see the scalp. So by curling, using that texture spray in, when you go to pull out like this and make this more textured and loose, you're not going to see big holes and gaps. It's just going to be really nice and full, even on someone who has really fine hair. Okay, so this is my foundation. I'm going to hairspray it with flexible hold hairspray over the top. And before I pin in this back, I'm going to go now and do the front because I want the front to just softly be pinned into the back here. And with really fine hair like this, I just need to work really clean and neat to make sure that nothing gets frizzy and nothing looks like it's going to fall out. And so I'm going to go through and do the same technique that I did throughout the back. I'm just going to take small sections and I'm going to curl them for volume. So I'm holding it up high and curling all the way down to the root, and that's going to make volume curls rather than holding my curling iron flat. So if I held my curling iron flat down like this, I'm going to get a flatter curl. If I pull my curling iron up and I pull the hair up, I'm going to get a fuller curl and a more volumized curl. So the smaller the sections you take here, the more texture you're going to get. So it totally depends on the style that you want. I want a fairly textured updo, so I'm going to take smaller sections and I'm gonna blast them with my texture spray once I've curled it. Now, mannequins tend to have more hair in the front. Most people don't have as much hair, I have found, as my mannequins do. So this usually wouldn't take you quite as long to go through and do the front. Another tip that I have for just doing wedding hair in general is I recommend really doing the front of your client's hair with them looking in the mirror. It can be something that's really intimidating. However, when you start to get comfortable doing that, you really make your clients feel more comfortable, because then they know that you're not only listening to them, but you're also going to grant their exact requests with how they want the front to look. Everyone has really specifics for how they like the hair in the very front of their face to land and look, where they want their part, if they want their ears showing, if they like their hair to come across their forehead or pulled up over their forehead. Most people have pretty specific requests on how that works. And so if you can work with your client in front of the mirror like this, then they will start to feel really comfortable with you and comfortable with your updo, so that you can be working on the back and they just feel confident and they feel like you got it together because you're really listening to them. So I'm gonna go through and do my texture spray again. And before I actually pin this back, I'm going to do the other side to make sure that I have balance. So I always like to work back and forth and go back and forth to make sure that I create a balanced updo that has a lot of, well, balance, you guys. That's what I like. I don't like to have hair that I have to go back and adjust and fix because it's lopsided or uneven. I'll tell you a story. About 20 years ago, I was doing a friend's hair for prom or snow days or some kind of dance. Anyway, I was just kind of, I did it for fun at that age, obviously. And so it was my friend's friend, and we were down in the basement in her bedroom, and I was doing her hair, and I was doing an updo, and I was pinning it all up in the back, and I had, done some twists and pins in the front, because that was really in style back then. But anyway, I kind of got the whole thing done, and I was like, I really like it, but it's lopsided. It just kind of shifted to one side. But I didn't know how to deal with it because, I was only like 16, and I didn't know how to fix that yet. And I didn't know how to tell her because I didn't want to tell her that it was lopsided because I didn't know what to do about it, basically. Anyway, she was like, oh, I forgot I have this flower that I want to put in my hair. And it was like this big. And so I took it and I put it in the back and I put it on the side that was uneven. And then it was perfect. Anyway, I just thought that was so lucky that she had this flower. So anyway, back then I didn't know how to find balance. Now I know that if I work back and forth and I take a step back from my work, as I'm creating my updos, then I'll always have balance and I won't have to panic at the end because something's uneven. All right, so now this is where we're gonna work with our client, this gal right here, to leave out the pieces that we want and make sure that we have the front looking perfect. So I'm just gonna skim off a little bit of the top. Now I'm gonna tell you a pet peeve of mine. You might like how it looks, I don't. I don't like when there's two pieces left out right at the very top of the hair, and then this is all pulled away. What I see there is a big gap right here, especially where the hair tends to recede a little bit at the temple. So I like to always make sure I'm skimming off enough hair to hide that gap and make it look more natural. So I find that if you leave a little more hair out, this looks more natural and you don't see any gap when you leave out more. So I'm gonna leave out that section there, and then I'm gonna do a little bit on the other side. And again, I like to take a little bit from right around the temple as well, because I don't like to see that gap. I think that doesn't look very natural or becoming on people. But again, this does not matter what you like. You can do what you like, but make sure you're checking in with your client because it matters what they like and how they like the front of their hair to look. So you really want to say, do you like this? Do you love this before I move on? Because once you start pinning the back, it's hard to keep pulling things out and adjusting it. That's when it starts to get frizzy. So make sure they really like it before you move forward. Okay, I'm going to call the shot for this mannequin head and say we like it. So then what I'm going to do is just bring the hair back softly over the back. So I'm using the tail end of my comb to just gently bring this back in a really soft kind of textured way. And because I had sprayed that texture spray in, then it just wants to go back really nicely for me. So I'm gonna just take this hair and I'm gonna twist it slightly, and then I'm gonna pin it into the foundation that I created. So that's why I created that really great foundation, because now when I get to this point here, all I have to do is take my pin, grab the hair and push it down into that foundation, and it has a spot to stick. So it can stay into that row of flat bobby pins, and that will hold it. Now I'll show you another technique that I like to do on the front. When I've saved out the front like I did, and I'm saving it for this section now. So what I mean by that is I left that section out, I pinned the back, and now I'm coming to revisit the front. You can bring back this hair here and use some hairspray and your fingers to just gently bring it back and kind of pull it in the shape that you want without pinning it at all. And because we did so much prep to start, you can see how it sticks. So it sticks to itself, and now I can go through and pin it and keep it secure, but I don't have to use a lot of bobby pins because I've already kind of gotten the shape that I like. So now I'm just guiding the bobby pins in to just provide some extra security, and I'm doing that by pinning them in and behind that foundation that I created. And so you just want to softly bring the hair back, hairspray it, and then you can use your pins to just come through and give it a little bit of extra security, just like that. Okay, now if you like how it looks from the front and the sides, you can finish by hairspraying the top with your flexible hairspray, and then we'll go through and pin up the very back. So I notice right now that I have a little bit of imbalance because I had more hair pinned up on this side than this side. So I'm going to balance that out by bringing this side up and pinning that. And again, that's just going to help me to create an updo that is even and balanced throughout. All right, so my last step now is to pin up this back. And again, just to reiterate, all this is curled, it's got product in it, it's texturized, so me pinning this up is going to be super easy. If I didn't have curls in here, if I didn't have product, if this is just her natural hair, it's going to want to slip, it's not going to stay up that long, and you're not going to get the same kind of volume and movement that you're going to get on hair that's been prepped like this. So I'm going to start in the middle because that will help me to create balance by bringing up this around. So I'm going to take the center hair and I'm going to leave it down, hair down underneath and on each side, and I'm just going to take the ends of this and I'm going to roll them up. I'm just going to pin this into that foundation that I created. And you can kind of pull it out and make it the width that you want it to be, because this is going to provide the first bit of shape to your updo. So if you like how that looks, then give it a spritz of flexible hairspray. And now I'm going to go to one side. I'm going to gather all of the hair. So I'm going to divide this in three. 1, 2, 3. So the outside section here, I'm just going to follow the shape of this curl. So it's curling inward. I'm going to bring it up and pin it into the very top. So again, we're talking about hair here that's very fine. And so you don't need to do too many small sections because this hair is super fine. And now I'm going to go through and do the middle. I'm going to give it a little twist, and then I'm going to pull it up to the top. And it's just working with me really nicely because of all the prep work that I did. And then the last thing I'm going to do is pin up this side. I just did this look on a bride this weekend, and when she got done and looked at it, she was like, I think her sister was like, oh my gosh, it looks like you have so much more hair than you do. And that is the goal of this style, is you want to make sure that it looks like they have a lot more hair than they do. And so now that I've pinned up those 3 sides, now what I'm going to do is just go through and detail anything that I need to. So I'm looking for balance. I'm looking to see if there's any spots that need to be pinned in. So like this is a little hole here. So I'm going to go through and make sure that that is covered. So I'm just going to kind of pull around. And that's what's good about doing all this prep work, is you can kind of manipulate the hair after you've pinned it. Because you have product in it already and it's already really texturized, you have some grip on it to just work the hair how you want it, to kind of pull it out and make it more balanced. You can pull out loose ends and make it look how you want, which is something unique to doing this style. When you're working on smooth curls and you're just pinning one curl at a time, you don't have that flexibility to be able to really manipulate the hair in the same way as you can with hair that's textured like this. So you can finish with some flexible hold hairspray, and then once you really love it and you know it's like perfect, then you can use hard hold hairspray. So you can see it's just really soft. It's got a lot of great texture in the top, and it's really, really full. So you can make your client really happy by having a fuller updo on hair that's really fine, by filling it in with all that texture and great curl before you started. So if you noticed, I spent the first 15 minutes or so curling and prepping, and this only took me about 5 minutes to actually pin up into the updo. And then it looks really pretty with any kind of accessories that you might want to have. So that is my tip for you on this Sunday morning on how to create a really lovely textured updo for someone with really fine and thin hair. If you have any questions, please comment below. You can also shoot me an email at updocollective@gmail.com. I'm happy to help. I would love to hear any questions or comments that you have on this, and any requests for any other updos in the future. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will be live again soon. So I hope to see you next time. All right, bye.